Yo, what up, dogs? Chris checking in with you today from the Unrelenting Brush. We've got another Patreon exclusive tutorial here. Massive love and thank you to all my subscribers who've signed up. It's massively helping me be able to do more of this content to the quality I love so that you guys can get passionate and motivated about the hobby, which I absolutely love to do by showcasing how to do it and breaking down those boundaries and those barriers around painting. Today we've got this awesome Minas Tirith warrior from Middle-earth Strategy Battle Games, a criminally underrated system from Games Workshop. 40k and a lot of their modern systems can learn a lot from how good this system is. Now, this model and its range are 20 plus years old. It's absolutely phenomenal how well they hold up, but they're a slightly smaller scale and the sculpts do have a little bit of jankiness we need to work around. But the aim of this is to have an army ready for Middle-earth painted in no time whatsoever, so we're going to do that with all over base layers and all over wash, picking out some sort of highlights and making these guys look absolutely wicked with minimal effort so we can get our armies on the table. Let's crack-a-thon! Now before we start painting, we're going to have a little discussion about painting in general. Painting is always going to be a compromise between three factors: the time we have to commit, the materials we have and the skills we possess to be able to paint our models, and the reference materials we're using to paint our models to match. Now thankfully Lord of the Rings has got heaps of material we can use and borrow from. For instance, the initial Middle-earth systems for Minas Tirith had bright silver armour with thick black recess shading. It looked great at the time, it was very old school Games Workshop, but it doesn't really reflect up to now. Sometimes you see, like in the picture here from the films, the armour is almost like a dark burnt iron, which I think is a little bit too dark if we want these guys to stand out on the table, and we don't want to mistake them for bad guys, so we want to use some luminous colours, while lending from the references of the films and maintaining our visage of it being a warrior for good up against the evil hordes of Mordor, Saruman, all the bad stuff. So we started off with a Chaos Black Prime. Up next we're going to hit it with some Burnt Iron from Vallejo Metal Colour. Now I used an airbrush for this to give it a zenithal. If you don't have an airbrush you can apply this with a brush. Alternatively, if you've got Iron Warriors from Citadel, that's a fucking excellent paint. Use that to do this instead. Again, I'm treating it like a zenithal because I want to leave a little bit of that black showing. It's not going to be the end of the world if we don't. This guy's going to be heavily shaded anyway, so don't stress too much about this step. Just get that colour on there. We want that silver to be brought up over the black without it being too bright or too dark. Here it is dry, really nice and shiny, but also really dark and sinister. So we're going to up that a little bit. We're going on to Dull Aluminium from Vallejo Metal Colour. And we're going to treat this like a zenithal spot. We're going to focus on the head, the sword, the arm, the chest armour, the leg panels, a little bit on his shin armour. And this is just to up it a little bit. We're going to keep it from an upward angle down to try and hold some of that darker values on the underside. Again, if you don't have an airbrush, you can apply this with a dry brush or you can just apply it with a brush. It's not going to make a massive difference. It's just faster and easier this way to do it with an airbrush. Now, these paints are incredibly pigmented with a lot of metallic flakes. Once we've done this step, and dry brushed after the next step, go and change your water to be fresh and not metal flaky. Here you can see just how bright that is. Now this is almost as what they were like when Middle-earth first came out. They were really like white silver with a thick black recess. We don't want that. So we're going to apply an all over black wash with Pro Acryl's Black Wash. This is straight out of the bottle, going all over, painting everything that we need to. And this will mute those metallics just a little bit to make them less shiny. It'll bring the white silver down to an almost medium silver, which is pretty much where we want to be. It'll also recess all those shaders beautifully, and without the risk of Null Oil from Citadel glossing it all up. So there's the dried result. You can see it's really brought that silver down, shaded our recesses. Absolutely sick, wicked, and bad. Up next, we're going to dry brush. We've got light metal here from MIG. You can use Ironbreaker, Stormhost Silver, whatever you want to do. Now I've loaded my dry brush up and you can see I'm gently dabbing it on the side of my painting handle just to see how much I've got on there because you don't want a lot here. And I really am just going to tickle those armour panels just with little strokes downwards, almost like feathering. And it'll just pick up the very sharpest edges. We don't want to do this too heavily and lose all our built up metallic values from the dark silver up to where we are now. We really do want this to just be that really subtle little highlight without having to painstakingly edge highlight everything. So again, the shoulder panels, the back panels, think about where any armour is. Don't forget the sword. A blunt sword's no good for slaying the enemies of the free men of the West, apparently. And again, the shield. Really lightly dragging this along. I've not got a lot of paint on there whatsoever. and the tree shield detail is important because you can go mad trying to paint that tree. I want to show you a nice easy way to go around it. Tickle, 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 get the sword nice and shiny and sharp. Handsome little Silver Surfer Minas Tirith warrior here. And there we go, beautiful. Now, it might look a little bit overpowering at the minute, but don't worry, I'll explain why. We're going to go in with some coal black now, and we're going to fill in those fabric details. So on the cloth between his legs, on the inside of his arms, the back of his legs, on his wrists, gloves. You can never tell when these models are wearing gloves, so just check the website, and if it looks like they're wearing gloves, cool. If you don't want to paint skin, make them wear gloves. Now, the silver looks overpowering at the minute because the whole model is silver. This is another bit of information I discuss at my workshops. It's very easy to get to this stage and decide whether you don't like the silver, it's too bright, it's too dark, do I need to add more to it? It's a surefire way to drive you insane in your hobby. The important element now is to fill in some other base colours where you need to. It throws a lot more balance on the model and helps you understand where you need to be and how close you are to the end result you want. There is no point getting here and being like, oh, I want to touch the silver up, I want to make it darker, brighter, doesn't need another colour on the silver. Don't stress about that until we've got some more colour on there, because you will drive yourself insane. This includes and especially includes the base. So if you're looking at a model and you're not sure if you're happy with the progress, chuck a colour down on top of the base. So mine's obviously silver because I've airbrushed it, but if you throw like a dark brown or a black or a grey or something like that, it frames the entirety of the model and gives you a much better perspective on how the result is looking. So don't discourage yourself because you're not sure if at this stage you're unhappy with the colours. Chuck some more colours on there and see where you are. At the end of the day, it's an exercise in creativity, it's doing something we enjoy, it's sensory, it's very tangible. It's very easy to get wound up around something you enjoy that's so kind of finessey as painting miniatures, but it really doesn't need to be, and that's what I'm trying to explain in my videos and at my workshops. Right, the shield. So, people go mad because they paint the whole shield black and then try and pick out the tree. They're lunatics, don't do that. We're going to paint around the tree carefully with our coal black from Pro Acryl. And you're thinking, oh, but what about in between the branches and stuff like that? Don't worry about it. I guarantee you once we've got the black down around the tree, you can maybe pick out a few bits in between some of the bigger branches with a fine brush. I'm using my orange brushes, thank you very, very much to them. These are wicked. But there's no sense in going between every single branch trying to pick it out. We've chucked a wash down there, it looks fine. If you want to chuck another wash down there to push the black between the branches, you can do. But ultimately, on the table, that as it is going to look great. We're going to do some subtle highlights now with blue black from Pro Acryl. Now all our black fabrics, we're just going to apply a little bit of this and a nice big chunky highlight just to chuck another colour on there. The references on the Games Workshop website, all these are black with a grey brought up. I wanted to add a little bit more of a blue tone for a couple of reasons. First off, it's another colour, otherwise he's literally silver, black and grey. It's just a bit boring, especially when he's going to be based grey because he's fighting Osgiliath. The second reason is, blue is a natural counter to red, and again, these are the good guys. We want that to reflect on the tabletop. The guys in the big armour and the slightly blue tinted clothing are the good guys, are the fights for good. The guys in the rusted armour that's almost black and with red cloth are clearly evil bad guys. And again, it's just lending to the narrative of the games we play. If you've ever played computer games, if you ever played the Battle for Middle-earth strategy games, unbelievably good games, if you can find them, get them. There's always an emphasis on those games of bright army colours, so what colour's your army? Red. Cool. Or their accent colours would be a bright red, your opponents would be blue. Their accent colours would be bright blue. And again, this reflects two fighting sides on the tabletop beautifully. We're going to do some Russian sand now, and that's just going to be on the hair. Very minimal effort, we're just going to paint this all on those strands. That'll do. Back to strategy games on the computer games. This is a really nice, easy way to make those armies stand out on the tabletop as well, and it's always something I throw back to of, I loved like Rome Total War, Middle-earth, Dawn of War. The bright accent colours reflect that on the tabletop beautifully, so let's try and focus on those where we can. Black-brown. Again, this is another colour I'm chucking in there. We're just going to do this on the belt and a couple of straps where needed. Again, the reference materials all on Games Workshop have these as black up to grey, and I think we just need a little bit more colour on there. So subbing the grey highlights on the cloth for the blue, and the belts and the straps for brown. And you can already see how that blue highlight and this brown is adding just that little bit more warmth to the model. And again, it's going to help it contrast great against orcs on the battlefield. Up next, we're going to do his face. Tan flesh from Proacryl, absolutely masterful. Using my orange brushes again, we're going to paint the inside of that helmet quite messily. We're going to do a couple of thin layers. If we get it on the silver, don't stress. I'd rather be messy at this stage and tidy up the silver than drive myself crazy by trying to pick out the face details and the cheekbones, trying not to get it on the silver. It pays when to be messy. This is a good time to be messy. If we get it on the silver helm, we'll tidy up with a little bit of burnt iron that we used earlier. When you're tidying up, use a dark colour, not a light colour, just because otherwise you'll have highlights where you don't want them. Light bronze, this is dead easy. We're just going to paint this on the pommel and the hilt guard, the cross guard of the sword. I use this colour because it's one of my favourites. It's just a really nice light goldy bronzy brass colour. You can swap this out for a dark bronze or one of your Citadel paints, completely up to you. It's just again another excuse to add another colour in and helps break it up so it doesn't look like his sword and his armour made of the same materials. Here's where we are at the minute. A little bit messy, but all our base layers are down, and you can see it's made a massive difference to the balance of the model in terms of it being all silver to now having those colours that we need in there. Brown wash from Proacryl. Get that Agrax, put it in the bin. This is a lovely matte finish and a great all-purpose shade for especially Middle Earth. We're going to apply this to the hair, the bronze details on the pommel and the crossguard, and onto our brown straps as well. Now this does two things. It shades stuff and gives it a really nice subtle earthy tone, and it helps differentiate these textures from what we've done previously. So we keep the black wash on the metal armour, on the blade of the sword, on the shield, and we keep the brown wash on everything else including the face. So this clearly dictates these are a different material to the black wash on the armour. It helps us push those textures with minimal effort because we can see the weathering's slightly different because metal weathers and reacts differently to fabric and skin and everything else. So using two different washes to differentiate textures, predominantly our two main textures, which in this case are metal and everything else, it's just a really nice, quick, easy way with minimal effort and no finesse to help break apart those textures and push those earthy tones on the model where we want them and where we don't want them. We don't want them on the metallic, we don't want it to look rusty or worn, we want it to just look dark with a slight silver shine, and everything else to look a little bit more earthy. Dead easy to do, and as you can see the results look excellent. It's subtle, but I guarantee it's a really nice, easy way to differentiate textures. We're going to highlight the face now with a little bit of the good old tan flesh. We're just going to apply this with the tiniest amount on a brush to his cheekbones and his chin and his upper lip. Up next we've got warm flesh from Proacryl again. We're going to use this for his teeth. Now don't be scared. Apologies for wobbly camera. What we need to do is hold the model to its side and have minimal paint on a brush and do a downward stroke across the row of teeth. So you do the top and then you do the bottom. If you get this on the inside of his mouth, apply a thin line of brown paint like the black brown we used earlier in between the two rows of teeth. Again, you can be messy with teeth. It's a lot easier to tidy up with messy teeth than it is to painstakingly try and paint each row with finesse. What a handsome guy. Here we go, he's all based up. He's ready to defend Osgiliath against the Orc Hordes from Sauron. Really nice, easy, quick tutorial. All in, he took about 15-20 minutes to paint. So it'd be dead easy to have 20 of these guys lined up and do each of your steps as you go and get them all painted in a really quick setting. So there you go, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this. I am eager to do more Middle-earth tutorials in the future. Leave a comment with what you'd like to see. If there's anything in particular you enjoyed about this, let me know. If there's any paints you'd recommend your end that you think I should have a look at, let me know. And again, thank you to Orange Brushes for sending me out a set of those. They've helped paint this model absolutely brilliantly. I've had them for well over a week now. They've painted almost 100 models, and the tips are as they were when I bought them, so thank you to them. There's a discount code currently for August on my Patreon. Use the checkout code UNRELENTING in capital letters for a 10% discount on Orange Brushes. That's it for now, guys. Thank you very much. Any shares and promotion from you guys to your hobby circles are appreciated. Keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the Discord. Peace!